Today we're at the Trott Street Beach Access in Oak Island, North Carolina. Hi, I'm Tom Long, and today I'd like to talk about the gospel reading for tomorrow's service. It comes from Matthew chapter 21, verses 28 through 32. So if you want to go read those verses. And that's the story that, it's actually a parable that Jesus tells. And it's about two brothers. And their dad says to the first brother, he says, "Go down in the vineyard and work for me today." And the first brother says, "Sure, Dad, I'll do that." And then he goes off and hangs out with his buddies and doesn't do any work. And then the second son, he comes to the second son, he sees nobody's down there working. He comes to the second son and says, "Hey, would you go down and work in the vineyard for me?" And the second son says, "Nope." And the father goes on about his business. The second son thinks better of it, and he goes down and he works in the vineyard. And Jesus asks those listening to this parable which one did the will of their father, and they all answered that it was the second one, who had said no and then went. And this falls in the context earlier on. Before that, the chief priest and the elders had been questioning Jesus' authority, and they questioned the nature of his authority. They said, "By what authority are you doing these things?" And they questioned the source of his authority. They said, "And who gave you this authority?" So Jesus is kind of answering in a way that you have to think about. He's answering those questions. So he didn't answer the chief priest and the elders. He kind of stuck them with making a choice between admitting that John the Baptist was a prophet sent from God, which would mean that they were failing to be baptized by John and repent and come to God, because they were acting like they were too good for that, or saying that he wasn't a prophet, and then they feared the people that they were oppressing would turn on them, and they would lose their positions of power and wealth in the community, because the priests and the elders were landholders. So Jesus tells this parable, and he uses a motif. It's kind of like, it reminds me of the good cop, bad cop motif that you see in a lot of TV shows and movies in the U.S. And this motif goes back in the Old Testament, back to Cain and Abel, Jacob and Esau, Joseph and his brothers, and so on up through the Old Testament. You've got like the good brother that shows what God's grace is like. Then you've got the brothers that maybe aren't so good, in contrast. And so Jesus taps into that two-brother motif when he tells this parable to answer the question about his authority and where it comes from. And the way that he does that is by talking about the difference between service and lip service. So the first brother gave lip service. "Yeah, Dad, I'll go do the work for you." And then he doesn't. And then the second brother's like, "No," but then he doesn't. So the first brother, lip service. Second brother, service. And Jesus says, look, which of them did the will of their father? So the authority that Jesus is talking about that comes from the Father is the kind of authority that is revealed not by words, but by actions. And so when you look at Matthew 7, verses 16 through 23, Jesus says that you can tell his disciples, they're like trees. You can tell the disciples of Jesus by their fruit, just like you can tell what kind of tree it is, by what kind of fruit it is. You don't go find apples on an orange tree, for example. And Galatians 5:22 and 23 tells us what Jesus' fruit looks like. He says the fruit of the Spirit of God, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And in John 13, verses 34 and 35, Jesus himself says, a new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. And then he says this, by this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. So if you want to know, yeah, my first run at this thing, I'm thinking about people that don't bear the fruit, and yet they're out there tooting their own horn, or they're tooting the horn of somebody that's not bearing the fruit. And then after I got done studying and thinking, a thought comes to my mind, and I think it's from the Spirit, and that thought was, what about your fruit? What's your fruit say about you, Tom? And so I'll just leave you with that question to think about. What about your fruit? Thank you for sharing your time with me. Until next time, may God bless you.